Hey everyone, you're listening to episode 67 of the Fifth Meeple Board Game Podcast. Thank you so much for inviting us to your table. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fifth Meeple Board Game Podcast. We're a group of diverse friends who offer our takes on the latest and greatest board games to hit our table. I'm your host, Daniela, the goofy noob, and I'm joined today by the collector.
Hey, this is David.
The intellectual introvert.
Hi, everyone. This is Chris.
And the deluxeifier.
Hello, it's Pete.
Today we are au naturel, at least figuratively. We will start laying down landscapes for an array of animals, becoming one with our natural spirit and harmonies. Then we work to save endangered species, rounding up reindeer and amassing orangutans in our quest to build a nature park in a game that is literally spectacular. And finally, because we just can't help ourselves, we act like animals ourselves as we pit these games against each other in our ultimate showdown, the Battle of the Funnest. But before we start today, David, what's our topic of discussion?
So today we're just going to do what's new on your table. We're just going to kind of go around, maybe share a couple games that maybe you've been playing lately that you just want to share with our audience and see kind of what's been hitting your table lately.
So I'll start. I got a couple of games in the mail just recently. One of them is Xenon Profiteer, Xenon Profiteer. It's a game I heard about on Board Game Hot Takes, and I decided to give it a go. And so far, I like it. I've played it 2 or 3 times. I'm a chemical engineer, and the theme of this is you are grabbing air and distilling out the nitrogen, the oxygen, the krypton to try to purify xenon, put it in your bank, and then satisfy contracts with it. Basically, you have a deck of cards. You pull a certain number in your hand, and then there are certain actions you take every turn to try to get cards out of your hand so that all you're holding element-wise is xenon. You can do some things, buy some cards to fix to your system so that you can be a little more powerful in doing that. But again, as opposed to a deck builder, it's kind of like a deck deconstructor or a hand deconstructor. Relatively quick. Plays about, I think Pete and I played it. It was about 45 minutes with Teach, probably a 30-minute game. And relatively simple, but nerdy theme. A little bit niche, but I don't know. I've been having fun with it so far. Pete, you played it once with me?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I picked it up pretty quick. You're absolutely right. It's not so much a deck builder. It's a kind of a deck manipulation as you take cards in and you're getting rid of cards. It's really nice. It was a good time.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
No comments from the lady over there?
Now, so full transparency, I don't buy games. Everybody probably can assume that since it's just, I do this as like a hobby, but I don't really collect them as the guys around the table. So, yeah.
Well, I went over to my sister's a couple weekends ago, and I got to bring a game back to the table that I really, really like, In the Halls of the Mountain King. I've talked about this one before, but we played with 5 players, and it was really a great time. I do enjoy this game. If you like tile placement, Tetris-like games, really good. Isles of Cat would be another one that's very similar to it. But it's also got a real neat mechanism where you have, it's called the Troll Smoot, and basically it's a cascading system. So when you want more resources, you actually hire a new troll, and that triggers everything from the top down in a pyramid-like. But if there was resources on those trolls already, it doesn't make any more. So you're encouraged to use what you have before you hire more trolls. And a really good game. I enjoyed it. I did not win. My nephew won. So that's always good when I can teach a game and somebody else wins it, and I don't feel like I, beat them up too bad. They beat me a little bit.
How many people play that game, Pete?
It'll play up to 5 players, I believe.
Okay.
Nice. That sounds like you might have to get it to our table here.
Yeah, we might have to get it to the table here.
It's one I talked about before. I think you guys would really like it. It's not very difficult. It's an easy game. You actually only have about 3 actions that you can take on your turn, and you're just kind of digging tunnels and gathering resources and trying to move these statues as far up into the center of the board as you can to score the most points. So it's a good time.
Very cool.
How about you, David?
Yeah, so for me, I have 2. I like deduction games. I recently went on vacation out to the Outer Banks in North Carolina, and so when I'm there, I normally play a lot of games with my sister-in-law, Rhiannon, who listens to the show, and we played 2 different games that are just 2-player games. One's called Europa Mine, And maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't, but basically if you took a Battleship and you gamified it and made it a little bit more challenging, you would come up with a rope of mine. So basically we are sitting across from each other trying to guess where we put different minerals and like shapes. They're like different kind of shapes, like diamonds or whatever the shape is, triangles and stuff, and we're figuring out where the other person's minerals are in this mine and trying to draw a picture of that landscape. So it was hard to get, but recently it's come out on Amazon, so it's pretty widely distributed now. I think you can get your hands on a copy, but if you like Battleship and want something a little bit more challenging, I really recommend this game. We had a lot of fun with it, but it does hurt your brain a little bit. But the second game I want to bring up is in that same kind of deduction realm, but this one's more of like your cozy game. So I like to play this one with my wife. She'll actually play this one with me. It's called Logic and Lore. It just came out. But basically in this game, you are just putting cards 1 through 9 and you're shuffling them up and you're trying to place them in order 1 through 9. And they're all face down, and your opponent has the same ones face down, and you're trying to get them in order. And so on your turn, you're going to show them 2 cards. Could be any of the cards in your row, because you don't know where they're at, and you show that to them. And then they tell you different things about them, like, are these kind of cards aligned with, the number that it should be? And if they say yes, then you flip it around, and you can kind of deduct there. But it's a really easy game. There's like 4 questions you ask them, and you kind of go down that list. And then when one of them hits, you stop asking questions, and you kind of know some information about the cards. You could readjust it any way you want, and then you're just trying to be the first one to get them lined up in a row correctly. And if you think you have it, you can go ahead and try to present. If you get it wrong, you lose, and if you get it right, you win. It's a pretty easy game. They have some advanced rules, but it's a very chill kind of game that does have a lot of deduction, but it's not to the level where it hurts your brain. So I really like that one too. So yeah, 2 deduction games. If you ever listen to the show, I really like those. So
yeah, the Europa Mine, I remember seeing that. We saw it, I think, at Origin. Somebody showed it to us, and then you brought it out maybe last week just to show it to us. And I just remember looking at it and thinking, oh my goodness, that would hurt my brain really, really bad. Because like light comes in from one side, and then it bounces off the angled surfaces, and all you get to know is, okay, you shot light in here, and they tell you where it came back out.
Yeah.
Right, and you got to figure out, okay, well, what might it have hit in order to be able to do that, along with the other information you got on previous turns. And I just like, my brain would just explode, and I just move on to something else, I guess. But interesting, but I think brain burner.
Yeah, because you could set up your own, setup on your side. You could try to make it tricky, but the funny part is I feel like every time we tried to make it tricky for the other person would somehow come in at a different angle, and they would not hit anything that we were trying to get them, to warp their mind around. So it was kind of funny. We're just probably really bad at the game, but it was a lot of fun.
All right, guys, thanks for that. So those are our games that are hitting our tables and what's out there. If you guys have any games that are new that you would be like, hey, Fifth Meeple, you guys should try this out, just let us know. You guys can email us by sending us an email at thefifthmeeple@gmail.com. You can follow us on social media or in our BGG guild, or you can check us out on our website at thefifthmeeple.com. In addition to subscribing to our show, one of the best ways to help us grow is to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may listen. And if you do, we might just read one of your reviews in the future. All right, guys, let's follow this river and see where it takes us during our discussion of Harmonies.
Harmonies is a 1-to-4 player drafting, set collection, and pattern building game where you build terrains into your landscape to attract animals to settle into their desired habitats. Each player starts the game with a player board representing the land in which they will build their habitats. 120 wooden tokens representing 6 different habitats are mixed in a bag, then drawn to populate 5 spaces with 3 tokens each to create the token market. A market of 5 animal cards is also available. On your turn, you must choose one set of 3 tokens from the market, then place them within your landscape. You can place them in any empty square, or certain types can even be placed on top of other tokens to create buildings, mountains, or trees. Each token type scores in different ways at the end of the game based on their placement details, including some situations where they won't score at all. Placement also, however, comes into play with the animal cards. Once per turn, you can choose to take an animal card from the market into your play area up to a total of 4. Each card shows a specific token pattern that particular animal desires, with spots for a number of animals that you can score. Cubes are held on these cards until you meet the specified conditions, at which point you take a cube from the card and place it on the indicated token in your landscape. Once a token has a cube on it, it can no longer receive another cube, but can still be used to form patterns. After scoring the maximum number of animals for a card, it's moved out of your play area to free up a space for another animal. After your turn, the token and animal markets are replenished as needed. The game end is triggered when a player has 2 or fewer empty spaces remaining on their player board, or when the token bag runs empty. At that point, the current round proceeds to completion and endgame scoring begins. Players score points based on token placement as well as from animal cards, and the player with the most points wins the game and lives in harmony with nature for all of eternity, or at least until the next game. In an included variant, each player starts with a Nature Spirit card, which functions similarly to an animal card, except that when completed, it provides a new scoring opportunity available only to that player. Harmonies was designed by Johan Benvenuto and was first published in 2024 by Libellude.
All right, Chris, thanks for that recap. All right, guys, so let's talk about Harmonies and some of the things that really drew us to maybe liking the game, some of the positives that we saw in the game, and we'll open it up for discussion.
Yeah, for me, the token placement, especially the ones that you can build up on top of each other, that to me is a neat part of this game. I particularly like how you can use maybe a level 1 mountain, you score one thing for it, and then once you've used it to score that, as long as you didn't have to put the token or put the cube on that token, you can continue to build up and use it for another one, and maybe even a third one, depending on how you go about it. That sequencing is kind of part of the puzzle you're trying to put together, but it's also a relatively quick game, so you've only got so much time to try to do that before you run out of time and end up with a bunch of cards that you did nothing with.
Yeah, there's some interaction in this game too. Not direct interaction, but a lot of times you're looking at there's like 3 different options that you can pick when you're picking those animals or the actual areas that you can grab. It could be water, it could be a mountain or whatever. And sometimes you're looking to see what you want, and sometimes some of those things are pretty valuable and other people are going to take it. So there is some of that interaction. It's not direct, but man, you get stuff sniped from you sometimes. So I do like that about the game, that it's not strictly solitaire, because it does kind of feel that way to me a little bit. I don't love solitaire games, but this one gives me a little bit of that interaction that I do like about it.
One of the reasons why I like Harmonies is because I feel like it's a very approachable game as far as like trying to teach somebody. This game, it's a very fast teach. I feel like you just kind of put it on the table and you can kind of explain it as you start playing. I feel like not every game is like that, but Harmonies is very approachable as far as if you're coming in maybe with people who haven't played a game before. This is a good place to potentially start. And it's definitely got some good artwork. I personally really like the vibe that it's giving off on the box cover. Just to get into the game itself, and just the components feel really good as far as the tactileness of them. When you're stacking them, it looks good on the table.
The individual player boards, they have 2 sides. There's a side A and a side B, obviously, and side B is a little bit bigger, but also when you play on that bigger side, the scoring mechanisms for the river changes. And I've been playing a decent amount recently on Board Game Arena as we're preparing for this, and I've experimented side A versus side B. And side B to me is a much better side to play, for me at least. Changes how you approach things, but also as you're trying to score with the rivers, it's really messing potentially with everything else you're trying to do. And I like that because the game itself is maybe a little too simple. There's too much luck in it for what I would typically have, and I don't feel like I have much control. But that extra challenge by that side B, to me, jacks it up a little bit, makes it a little more enjoyable for me.
Yeah, I enjoyed the implementation of it on BGA. I think it was really good. I know we played a couple games, and I also played some solo games just to make sure I understood, how some of that things work. It can be challenging because a lot of times when you're taking those 3 components there, 2, you might really, really want that last one. You're like, what am I going to do with this thing? So it does kind of push the end game too, because as you said, once you get that board filled up quite a bit, that will trigger the game to end as well. And I think one of the early games that we played, you guys always tell about me pushing the end game, and I think I filled up my board just kind of spread out because I think I was afraid of you guys just ramped up on points, because I'm looking at your board and you're getting all these points and I got like nothing and I have no good thing. I'm like, I better end this before they get too many points. So
wait, Pete was pushing endgame?
You believe
no
that?
way.
I
Can you
admitted
believe
it.
that? I do think that if you are into the realm of like puzzly games like Cascadia and like Azul and stuff like this, I think Harmonies fits in there. You see a lot of comparisons maybe to it. I think it's just like, to me personally, a little bit of step down. I didn't play side B, maybe like, Chris, you've been playing, because I do feel like it's a little bit simpler on there. but I'll kind of get into that when we go into the other side. But I do think if you're looking for something that maybe you tried Cascadia or Azul with somebody and it was just a little bit too much for them, I think Harmonies might be the place that maybe you could bring out this game instead, and they can maybe wrap their head around it, because I do think it's a little bit simpler than both those two games, even though it gets compared a lot to those.
That's interesting, because I think the complete opposite on this game. I think Cascadia and Azul has better flow to it and ease when we're playing it. So I guess it's just a different take on.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move into some of the things that maybe just didn't work out for us, maybe didn't pan out. I kind of talked about this just a couple seconds ago, but I think with this game, as the cards were coming out and you're trying to build your own little tableau, maybe again, Chris, to your point of flipping the card over and having more space, I definitely felt really crammed, like within the first couple cards of how am I going to make other cards go adjacent? And maybe it was just a matter of what cards I'm picking up and not understanding like, oh, these cards mesh well with each other and you got to build this and that. I don't know. To me, it seemed very cloudy. I don't know, just like a lot of headspace for thinking for what it was for me.
Yeah,
So.
and to be clear, that side B is bigger. It's not massively bigger.
Oh, okay.
It's like side A is 23 spaces, side B is 25. So it says in the rule book, oh, it's a bigger space. So you go, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll try that. And I was like, well, it's not that much bigger.
Yeah.
Well, I would say I kind of agree with you, Daniela, because sometimes what comes out of the bag and when you're setting up those tiles, it could be absolutely nothing that you need. And the animals there, they don't mesh with the tiles that are out there. And to me, that can get a little frustrating because I don't feel like all the time I have as much agency over what is coming out and what's there.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Pete, on that point.
Yeah, me too, 100%. It could be both the tokens or the cards. How many times it's like, okay, I need a new card. Those are all crap, right? And there's nothing you can do other than you don't get another card at that point. And there's only so many turns in this game, especially if someone's pushing in game.
Yeah, I think that's what hurts this game the most is just like what you guys were saying. It's just there's no like kind of room to maneuver. If those cards aren't there when you're picking, you just get
It's
what
stuck.
it is.
Like
yeah.
I felt like very stuck.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do. And even if I didn't know Pete was pushing endgame, I think I just felt like I have nowhere to go. And so I think I just kind of tried to fill it up at that point, and then I scored trash.
Right. You can put a little token out there, and then, because you need to put it somewhere.
Yeah,
you can't just hang on to it. And then at that point, the next card comes out, and it's like, oh, man, I wish I would have put it one tile over and I could do something with it. So if there was only some kind of mitigation with that, maybe 3 times or 2 times you could take a tile and flip something over and say, oh, I'm going to move this. I think that would really add to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a short game, and so if something like that does happen, okay, it's 20-minute game, maybe, but still, then that's 10 minutes that you're like, okay, I'm just finishing. I'm just finishing.
That's when you push the end game.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, as far as production goes on this, I'll kind of switch subjects a little bit. But when I got this game, I got this game very early on in, when it came out in 2024. And at least the copy that I got, maybe they had fixed other variations now because it seems like it got really popular. But when I first got this game, the player boards were really warped. Like everything's, even to this day, like some of the cards, they don't lay flat. When we were pulling it back out, I was like, well, we're going to try to bend these cards back. But that kind of messes with it, especially when the cubes have to like sit on the cards. It's just not a functional kind of thing. I think there was a big blow up when this game first came out about that. I'm not sure if they ever did anything. If they did, I never got replacement cards. Hopefully they took care of it in the later versions. But I think that's one of the reasons too, where I first got this game, I played it a couple times, but because the board was like the cards were so warped, we just kind of put it back and we haven't brought it back out. So we played it in this challenge. So I was hoping that, maybe it would refresh my memory of what this game was. Maybe, because I heard so many good things, but I'll let that to be decided here in a little bit.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate production error, of quality control, I think. And that, to your point, you pull out a game, it does look great on the table, but then it's like, I don't want to pull that out because it's janky.
Yeah.
And it might not sound like much, but you said the key thing. Okay, big deal. The cards are warped a little bit. The cubes are supposed to go on the cards.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take much warping to where those cubes are not staying on those cards.
Exactly.
And then it ruins the experience.
All right, guys, why don't you take us over to the collector's corner, David?
Yeah, so right now this game is going on Amazon for $34.97, which I guess maybe that's just where board games are. In my mind, when I saw this price, I thought it was a little bit high for what you get in the box. And then going to, just Board Game Geek on the secondhand market, it was still selling between $20 and $25, it seemed like. I looked it up on our local board game stores that we go to over here, and I was seeing that the price was closer to $31.99. So, Amazon, though, is kind of all right there. It's still in the upper mid, like low 30s. I just thought that was a little bit high for, I feel like, what you get in here. In my head, I was thinking this game was probably going to be around $20, especially because I feel like they mass produced it and you can almost find this anywhere, but it's $35 still, which I thought was a little high for this game, but that's just my opinion.
Okay. All right. Great for that. All right. So final thoughts. Let's go around the table. David, will just hit you right back up there. Final thoughts for this game?
Yeah, this is a game that everything tells me that I should like, because I do like games like Cascadia. If you've ever followed my top 15 list from last year, I ranked that game really high, and I really had high hopes for Harmonies when I first got it. I don't know if it's ever lived up to those expectations. I can see the appeal for maybe a certain segment of the board gaming population, but I still think that segment is more towards a gateway game, something that you're gonna put on the table for newer players, but not necessarily. I don't know if the complexity is what I'm necessarily looking for over a long period of time. I'm going to kick it over to Pete.
Yeah, it's a good puzzly game, but for me, I think there's just too much randomness in it, and not having an ability to kind of mitigate some of that stuff just kind of brings it down quite a bit for me. I usually don't enjoy playing these kinds of games. When we're playing and I take my turn and I got 3 other people waiting for me, I would well prefer to play this on BGA if I have to. So that's my comment on that. Chris?
Yeah, this game gets compared a lot to Cascadia. We are not comparing it to Cascadia here, so I'll give you my little take. I would take Cascadia any day over Harmonies. Much better game for me. Harmonies itself, it's okay, and that's about as high as I will go on it. You mentioned the BGA implementation. It's good, and so that's where I get most of my plays on it, just going on, playing it solo to kill time. It's an activity. Solo mode's kind of dumb, but it passes the time. It's okay, but again, I'd rather play Cascadia, and that's what I would end up doing.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Yeah, I think for me, the game didn't land where I wanted it to. Chris and I always kind of comment back and forth about Cascadia because he loves it, and I'm like, it's all right, But it's funny. This game kind of showed me that, Cascadia is eking out better scores for me on this. But I guess, overall, I think a sense of disappointment. I don't really have much more to say on it. I think the mechanics in Cascadia were a lot cleaner, straightforward. I remember even trying to, when I was learning this game, it's like, where do you put the little cube and where do you put these things? And just to, Pete's point, what can I do with these tiles maybe, and move them around, and where can I take them to if I didn't like where I placed them? I don't know. It just landed a little flat for me. So so those are our thoughts on Harmonies. Well, guys, as harmonious as this has been, we're going to take a little quick break, and then let's change our melody and dive into our discussion of Spectacular.
Spectacular is a 1 to 6 player dice and tile placement game where you develop your own animal park for vulnerable species. Each player has their own player board consisting of 19 hex spaces for tile placement. At the start of the game, each player rolls 8 dice of 4 different colors to become their personal dice supply and shuffles 10 personal hex tiles, revealing 3 as their draft pool and placing 3 more on designated locations of their player board. A number of supply boards equal to the number of players are also filled with 4 dice and 4 tiles each, one of each of the 4 game colors. Each player takes one of those supply boards to start the round. On your turn, you will draft 1 die or tile from the supply board, plus 1 die or tile from your personal pool. After all players have made their draft choice, players simultaneously place the tiles and dice into their park. Dice must be placed on a tile of matching color, with restrictions for some tiles on what number can be placed there. Certain tiles have tower wedges on them that, if combined properly, allow the placement of a tower on the board, opening up new die placement and scoring opportunities. After all tiles and dice are placed, players refill their personal tile pool and pass the supply board to the player on their left. The first round ends when the supply boards run empty. Intermediate scoring then occurs with players scoring points for every die value that can be traced back to the indicated entrance location. The supply boards are then repopulated and the second round begins, continuing the drafting, placing, and passing. When the personal supplies run empty, the game ends and players earn points for dice and tile groups with breeding tiles, dice around fully surrounded watchtowers, and the number of unique animals in their park. If playing with the optional mission module, players also score for each mission they've successfully accomplished, and the player with the most points wins the game while the others go the way of the dodo. Spectacular was designed by Eilif and Osmund Svensson and was first published in 2024 by Chili Fox Games.
All right, Chris, thanks for that overview. So let's get into this one a little bit. All right, Spectacular. So let's talk about some of the things in this game that we thought were great and worked for it and that were enjoyable as we played.
The first thing I'm going to say, because I set up a lot of these games, is that the storage solution inside Spectacular is actually pretty spectacular compared to most games. Everything comes in like these tuck boxes. You can kind of sort out different players. So it's really easy when you open this game up, especially because it can play up to 6 players. So just kind of hand people boxes and just kind of go. And I really do like that. They thought of that. We're not in a bunch of Ziploc baggies or anything like that. They've actually put some forethought into that. And I thought that was a nice touch going into this game. Something I wasn't expecting, especially when I opened the box, to see that they had thought of these solutions, especially for the price point of where it's at.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I'll say that, hey, we just talked about Harmonies. This is not Harmonies, right? The complexity here is very high, much more so than what you see in Harmonies. And maybe I'll make some arguments later that maybe it's a bit too complex, especially right off the bat. But I love all the different pieces that come into play. You're balancing group size, you're balancing breeding tiles, watchtowers. Maybe you're playing with missions. That's a lot that you can get into if you want to get into it. And you need to watch what others are doing too and predict maybe what your options are going to be 2 or 3 turns from now so that you don't put yourself in a position where, okay, I got to waste this turn because I can't do anything. It's a lot there. You throw in the missions, asymmetric sides, etc. It's a lot to do. It's good replayability, I think, and I enjoyed my play so far.
Yeah, the drafting on this is really nice. It's not only dice drafting, but you can also draft tiles. And you have to make that decision. You're drafting one from a shared area that's going to get passed around, but you also have your own player board. So I like that you can plan a little bit with what you have, so you can kind of think what you have to work with. Sometimes you're just waiting because you got to buy a turn. You see maybe Danielle is across the way from me, and I'm hoping that maybe in 2 turns I get that yellow die that I need, that I see there's a 4 and I got a great spot for it. So to your point, making sure that you are watching the table a little bit, but you also have to plan accordingly because sometimes they disappear on you real quick. And it's really important. And we always talk about this, or at least I try to bring it up. Knowing how to score in this game is really important. I think we're all going to have something a little bit to say about that because each of the tiles will have I believe it's a star on there. Is it the star that's on there? The heart for the scoring. And you need to have that heart matching up and, make your little pathways with linked similar ground. And if you don't have that, you're not going to score anything if there's no hearts on there. So
you can have some great dice in a really big area. And if you don't have breeding tiles, tough.
Right. So those, when I'm playing the game, those are some of the things that I prioritize even over something else that I might want, just because maybe I can tuck it up somewhere else out of the way and hope that I can score off of it later.
And I think the game does a good job, though, also of balancing so that someone just doesn't go, I'm going to get all the breeding tiles, but all you're putting on those breeding tiles are a 1 or a 2. And so if you fill up too much with those, well, you're still only scoring 1 or 2 for each of those tiles, regardless of how many times you multiply it. So I think it was wisely done that, okay, the ones that everybody's going after, you only want so many of those too.
Right. And the other part of that too is with the scoring, there's 2 different stages and they score differently. And I'll let somebody else talk to that a little bit, because I think that's a plus and it could be a minus depending upon if it's too complex.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that in the second part.
Yeah, okay. We'll talk about that in the second part. So
yeah, I mean, I agree with both of you. I think the way that the draft goes around, for me as being, not really thinking ahead on a lot of games. I know a lot of people, when we're playing or looking around, they're seeing what else is going on. This is one of the games that I did think that was extremely appropriate to be able to look around and see that dice is over there or that tile is there. And I know I'm going to need that, and you're just waiting for it to come around. You do have to plan in advance for this. And I do think that this game is supposed to be a little more fluid than it is. And I'll say that in the sense that when we added the mission tiles, that added a level of complexity that I wanted to not harm myself. But that was aggravating, and
too much
it was
for me.
It was to a point where I was like, it doesn't need this. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not knocking that if somebody loves that portion of the game, but I guess I am.
Yeah, I think it needs it. It benefits from it, but there are certain things that I think, okay, that didn't have to be part of the base game, and I'm going to touch on some of those. Okay. But I just think, hey, the missions you can play with or without. Leave them out until you're ready for them. But I thought there were other parts of the game too that was like, hey, start really, really simple and just let people add what they want. And I would home roll that if I had this game. I'm not introducing it to people with everything in there when I'm starting out.
Agree.
Yeah. The other thing that I would just add is I do like that you do have tiles where you can flip to up or down a number, which can be really, really important, especially
the mitigation of
especially if you need one of those 1 or 2s to place on there and there's a 3 coming along. Having that flexibility I think is really good. We talked about in the other game that there was no adjustment, and I do like that about this game. That even though it's nothing earth shattering, but sometimes just to up or down one number can really make a difference.
For sure.
Yeah, and those numbers can actually go from a 6 to a 1 and a 1 to a 6, which in a lot of games you can't, mitigate that way, which I like that they were like, yeah, you can do that. 6 can be a 1 or a 1 can go to a 6, which is nice.
Yeah, and that actually helped me plan early. I used those early on in the game, which I thought was appropriate for the game that I was playing, because then it helped me know next what am I going for, and I was able to do that with some of the dice. So for me, that's how that worked.
Yeah, with the towers, you have to put the only place that you can put a 6 is next to a tower that's already built. And sometimes that 6 comes around and maybe I just want it for the 5. And that way I just snag it and put it in, my zoo or
And most likely I'm next in line and really needed that 6.
Yeah.
That's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Anybody?
Yeah, I also think this game plays anywhere from 1 to 6. I have not tried the official solo mode. I've played it between 2 and 5. For me, at least, it works at any of those player counts that I've played it at. It works really well. And initially, I was thinking, well, with 2 players, you don't have to think as much ahead because you're going to hand it to your opponent and then it's coming right back to you. But at the same time, what's on those 2 boards, that's all you got, right? Yeah. And so you have a little less to choose from, and it's a different kind of puzzle that, I don't have to predict so much, but I got to work with what I have.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, well, let's transition over to then maybe some of the frustrations that we have in the game. I know we've already talked a little bit about some of the scoring and things, so if anybody wants to open up that, I'll just kind of talk there. Sorry. But so I think some of the instructions on when we were scoring the first round and then scoring the second round, and I'll just kind of pause there if anybody wants to maybe explain that a little bit more. But you almost have like 2 games in one, and then if you're getting confused on what phase you're scoring on, but you're also trying to score for phase 2 of that, it's a little bit more complex than I think I'm making it out to be, but it left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I went both ways on this. I wasn't sure what I thought about this because half of me says, I don't need that intermediate scoring round. It's like, why are you doing that? But then at the same time, when I reflect on it, it's really messing with what you're going to try to do at the end of the game, because you might be putting things in places and making decisions on dice that are not optimal for that second half. And again, I think that's where, hey, this is not Harmonies. This is a really complex little game that looks kind of simple, and then you realize that if you want to do well, there's a lot going on. And I think that's one of those things where, hey, they're screwing you up in that first phase. If you want to score high there, you better be doing it right, or you're going to be challenged.
And does it mean that you should pick one scoring that, hey, I'm going to really go off the wall and score a ton in round 1, and then maybe 2, I'll get what I can get? I don't know.
I think if you're going to play it well, you got to do them both. And that's the challenge.
All right.
Because I played this a lot. I took this home and I played tons of multi-handed games myself. And no doubt, the more I'm playing it, the more it's like, okay, I don't have to think about this part anymore. That's coming more naturally, and now I can think about this. And that's where I was getting into other piece where there's so much going on, it's too much too fast. I played several games, and then I flipped it over and played the asymmetric, and then I brought the missions in, and then I tried this. And quite honestly, at no point did I worry so much about, there's a scoring mechanism in there that is not optional, that is, how many different animals do you have in your park? And it's just whatever you happen to get is when you're first learning it.
Yeah.
And it's a really big scoring difference. It can make 20, 30 point difference for, I didn't even realize I was doing that.
Or you miss it by one animal and you're just like, frick.
Yeah, and that's one of the ones that I think, hey, make that an option, but just say, hey, don't even worry about that when you're first starting out. Don't include that in your scoring. And once you got it figured out and it's like, this is a little bit easier now, throw that in there, right? Throw the missions in there, throw that in there, and just keep leveling up and leveling up. If you do that, you can play this game for a long time and it never seems the same if you just keep adding something else in there.
I think that's a great point. Almost like a phased scoring approach, Chris. Like when you're bringing this game out, focus on these 2 things, develop that. Now we're going to add this, develop that. Now we're going to add. I think that's smart and key.
Yeah, and I think when you do that, then all of a sudden you're able to do all those things. Because we were playing with the missions, you're like, I'm not even worried
Yeah,
about
I
these
didn't
missions.
even look at them.
And
I didn't either.
Because I had played enough, I was able to. And I got all 3 of my missions because the other
Whatever.
part I didn't have to think so much about.
Yeah.
I do think that this game definitely benefits from multiple plays. It is a hard teach. Like, it's weighted 2.3 out of 5 on BGG, but I think it's a little bit misleading because that initial teach up front is not the easiest of teaches because there's a lot of different ways to score. Like you guys were talking and alluding to the animals and how they score. It's like if you want to score max points for animals, you have to like come up with this finicky rule that you actually have to throw away an animal in order for that to actually occur in order to score max points. And then when you say that to people, just so that they know that that's an option, they look at you with like, now it's like way over their head.
Yeah.
And I do agree that there maybe should be some tier approach. I'm not sure because the first half plays differently than the second half. But I think that once you get over that initial barrier and you actually solidify those rules in your head, I think that this game starts to fly. And I do think that there's a lot on the back end, and then you really see it being smoothed over. But that first initial rule teach is quite challenging to teach new players, even though it's only weighted at 2.3 out of 5. I would say that I say the game overall is probably that, but that first initial rule teach is probably closer to like a 3.2 or something like that for that first initial thing where you're trying to just download information on them on how everything scores, because everything scores different. Dice operate differently. There's placement rules for dice technically as far as like what number can go where, yet they can go anywhere on the board, but they can't. It's just tiles can go anywhere, but it's hard to differentiate that, especially with a new player. I do feel that initial teach is tough on this game.
Yeah, the one thing that got to be a little frustrating for me too was when we were playing, especially initially. You take a tile and you take one from the top and one from your side, and you're supposed to kind of put it in your little area. But I know the way that I work, I'm like, grab this one and I'm trying to see, is this a good fit for it? And maybe I set it down, then grab the other one. I know when we were passing the boards, I think there was a little, I don't want to say confusion, but some people were getting ahead of the others, and it kind of throws you off a little bit because, all right, I've already took my 2 tiles and pushed my stuff over to David here. Well, David knows what's available, which may affect his turn.
Yes.
And I think there's a little bit of a timing on it. Now, this is a game that, again, I'm not going to get all crazy, and this is more of like an activity for me. I'm going to have fun playing it. I'm going to try to score well, but I'm not going to try to eke every little point that I can out. And I think just with that timing, with passing the boards and what you've drafted and what maybe Chris has drafted to my right, can really affect what I might want to do. So I would just say there's a little stickiness there. I don't know that it's super clean. I don't know that there's a super great solution because, again, we are looking around to see what might be coming. So there's that kind of like, all right, well, all right, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And then, that gives an advantage to somebody else.
I almost feel like it should be randomized every time, whether it's like a roll of the dice and then the boards just get sorted a different way. So you can't really see what somebody else is passing you. Because I do agree with you, Pete. There are times where there's definitely an advantage for somebody who maybe is taking their time, but then somebody else already put their stuff down so they can see what's coming at them. I think of like what's that game called? Planet Unknown. But Planet Unknown's a little bit more random because it's not just like, oh, we're just going to switch the board. The Lazy Susan just won over. So you don't know what tiles you're going to get because the person's picking. I almost feel like, there should be some kind of randomization to the boards. That way it doesn't really matter necessarily that, you can't necessarily see the other board coming. You might not get that one. You might get somebody else's. And that's just kind of how the game would flow. I don't know how you would do that, but I think that would help mitigate some of the concern of people just going a little bit faster than others. I don't know how unless you're going to put up dividers.
Well, what you're supposed to do is you decide which one you're taking from each area, and you're not locked in until everybody says, yes, I'm done.
And you place it on your board.
You place it on your board, and then you say, okay, now we're placing. But we are an impatient group, and so as soon as we know what we're taking, we're just putting it in there. And you're sitting there still trying to decide, and someone's sliding the board over to you, and we're just an impatient group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of touch on everything you guys said. If someone is taking their time and being extremely strategic versus the person that goes, I know I need a 5 dice, or I know I need this, and they see that coming and they pick it. Yeah, it got a little, oh, you're waiting on me? Like, oh, okay, well, what turn is it? What round are we in? I think at one point, Chris, you're like, how do you have that many dice? Or you were asking me, I was like, I don't know. Like, I think I took.
I'm 3 turns ahead.
Yeah, like, I don't know. So, yeah. All right. Well, David, why don't you take us over to the collector's corner on Spectacular?
Yeah, so right now you can find Spectacular on Amazon for $38.99. So it's a little bit more than Harmonies that we just talked about. But if you go to your local board game stores, I was seeing like the same price for Spectacular to Harmonies at a lot of our board game stores, and they were both going for like $31.99. So I do think Amazon, sometimes they tend to be a little bit high, but on the secondary market, if you actually look for Spectacular used, like on BGG and stuff, it's actually going for around $15 to $20. Which is actually under what Harmonies is going on the secondary market.
Chris is buying it.
Which kind of surprised me, when I looked at the data, because you get a lot, I feel like the components and stuff, you get a lot more in Spectacular than you do with Harmonies, and yet it's not holding up as well on the secondary market right now. So if you're interested in that, you might be able to snag a copy somewhere between that price range.
All right. Final thoughts rounding the table. Back to you, David.
I really like the puzzle in this game. Once you get over that first initial rule set, if you can get this game to the table, more and more, I think that there's a lot there to explore, and I do like it. The puzzle's really, really nice. For somebody who likes Cascadia, I do really like the puzzle in Spectacular. You can never necessarily always play a perfect game because somebody will get in your way, or there's some frustration parts where you have to throw away a dice and you don't get anything for it and stuff like that. But overall, I feel like it has enough mitigation to make the puzzle worth it for me, and I do really enjoy that. I'm going to pass it over to Pete.
I like the drafting part of this game. I think that's what really does it for me. I think that's the big draw if I'm going to play it. It's more so because it's a drafting game, and then, building out my tableau a little bit. I do like puzzles. It's just not something that I like to go to often. But if you had with being able to play 6 players, I think this is something that you can get if you can get over that learning curve and teach it to everybody. I think if you're going to do this, you play at least one learning game and then follow it right away with a follow-up. Okay, let's try to dive deeper now. So that's what I would say. Chris?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier this is a complex game. That's good for me. It's not for newbies. Daniela will maybe expand on that a little more as the most recent newbie, but I like all the different pieces. I can appreciate a complex game. But you got to know you're going into that. Don't get this and say, oh, that looks like a cute little game. No, it's going to rock your mind if you're going in there thinking it's going to be Harmonies, because it's not.
Yeah.
It's a complex game, but I liked it.
Yeah, I think just to round out the conversation, I agree with what everybody said. I think if you can take this game and do a little bit of modified rules and try the scoring for even just the first round and the second round and get that down, again, like Pete said, play it if you can a couple times in a row. Take out some of the components that maybe, not that they don't need to be there, but for the initial beginner starts of this game, keep it simple, right? And that's, I think, going to be where this game lands sweet, because there is a fun part of this game of getting the animals, of getting the dice and placing them and being able to kind of build that out and seeing what you can get based on how the things turn out and the dice go around. So, overall, good game. Well, I'm beginning to feel a little bit endangered, so let's head on over to today's Battle of the Funnest.
All right, everyone, the moment of truth has arrived. It's time to separate the men from the boys and the games from the toys. We're pitting these games head-to-head against each other in the ultimate face-off. In one corner, weighing in at 2.0 out of 5 with an overall BGG rating of 8.0. Cascading onto the scene like an unforeseen queen, crafting perfect rivers and trees for the birds and the bees, a mellow fellow in yellow fields, the monarch of the mountains, the prince with a pouch. Calm down, you animals. It's Harmonies. In the other corner, weighing in at 2.3 out of 5, with an overall BGG rating of 7.3, growing like a park near Noah's Ark, never leaving you hanging like an endangered pangolin, rising to power like a beige watchtower, the snow leopard shepherd, the fertile sea turtle, the Archimedes of endangered species, Spectacular. And now, let's see which game outlives the other in today's Battle of the Funnest Showdown. All right, guys, we're evaluating these games head-to-head in 5 different categories: theme and production, mechanisms, value for your time, replayability, and the fun factor. The game that gets the most votes wins each category, and the game that wins the most categories takes the prize. So let's get it started with theme and production. I'll start with Pete.
Yeah, theme and production on this one, I'm going to give this to Spectacular from the points that David mentioned earlier about the cards in Harmonies just not being there. And I think the theme's a little bit stronger with Spectacular. I do feel like I'm kind of building a zoo, if that's what it is, and having the animals there. I'm just going to go with that. Daniela.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to go with Spectacular for theme and production. To David's point, just the way that the whole game comes out and it's put well together. I do think that the animals felt like you were kind of creating them. You're creating the pens. You're looking at the tiles as well, kind of seeing what the backgrounds are. It felt a little bit more fluid to me when I was building in Harmonies. It felt a little bit, I don't know. I didn't know what I was really building. It's a little bizarre. Chris.
Yeah, the theme for both of these for me it's like the most overused theme in board gaming right now. There's a lot of overused themes, but no one wins in theme for me. For production, again, neither one blows it away, but those warping cards we talked about, that's going to be the death blow for me. It's close, but Spectacular will take theme and production for me. David, is it a sweep or where are you going?
Yeah, it's going to be a sweep for me, too. I actually didn't even know what the themes were, so thanks, Pete, for letting me know what the themes were on Spectacular, because I didn't even know we were building a zoo there. As far as production goes, yeah, I mean, I just can't get over the fact that a main component of a card in what you're supposed to do with it, when that doesn't function properly, it's going to be really hard to win. Even though I do like the art a lot better on Harmonies, because the Spectacular art looks a little generic, like,
I agree
Little
with
clip
that.
arty.
Yeah.
clip arty, yes.
Yeah. All right, so Spectacular will take theme and production 4-0. We'll go on to mechanisms. I will start this one. I mentioned earlier I like the token stacking in Harmonies. I like that you can use the same token for multiple scoring opportunities. Again, even changing the mountain size and you're using it multiple times. I really like that. Spectacular's mechanisms, to me, they're all pretty standard. They're put together really nicely, but there's nothing, for me at least, really unique from that viewpoint. So I'm going to go with Harmonies here and give them their first vote. I'll go to Daniela.
All right, I think with mechanisms, for me personally, this is just going to be my vote is going to go to Spectacular again, even though they are a little bit more straightforward and kind of the same mechanisms we've seen on a lot of different games. For me, the cohesiveness of putting those together worked better in my playbook. Pete.
Spectacular for me. I'm going to go as winning this one for me. I like the drafting of it. Tableau billing is nice. And I like that there's some mitigation in it. In Harmonies, you kind of get what you get, and you make the best of it. And to me, that's just not what I'm looking for in the mechanics. I don't have any control. David.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Pete on this one. Almost for ditto. I feel like the mechanisms are semi-similar, but just the mitigation's just not there for me in Harmonies. I just feel like it's luck of the draw, and I don't like any game that is just luck of the draw. So I'm going to go with Spectacular.
All right, so I'm on an island here with Harmonies. Spectacular takes mechanisms to take a 2-0 lead. We will go to value for your time. I'll kick it to David.
Yeah, value for my time. Both these games played about 20 to 30 minutes. When I think about the value for the time on it, though, I'm still going to go with Spectacular. I just get a lot more game, especially when you get your heads around the rule set. I think this game just starts to really fly, and the possibilities start to come out a lot more. If I could play it in the same amount of time as I can play Harmony, it's a no-brainer for me. I'm going with Spectacular. Kicking it over to Daniela.
All right, I think for value for time, Harmonies was about 10 minutes shorter. None of these games blow my socks off in any capacity. I think if I want to get through a game and maybe just have it as a filler, Spectacular is not going to be that. So I'm going to go with Harmonies on this one. Pete.
I'm going to agree with you on this one. Harmonies, and I'm voting value for the time because I think it's easier to get to the table. It's going to be an easier teach in a game group. And I think people are going to enjoy it a little bit more. As much as I like the complexity that I get out of Spectacular, I just feel that the value that I get just being it being a simpler game, because I think Spectacular is trying to be a simple game, but it's not. And I think it's kind of that bait and switch. And I think you have to be ready for it. So value for the time, I think you're just going to get Harmonies to the table a little bit more. Chris.
Yeah, I don't think Spectacular is trying to be a simple game, but I think it presents as one.
Yes.
And so that's where it would be. But we're going to have a tie because, yeah, Harmonies is quicker, but I get more bang for my buck out of Spectacular. So for me, it's Spectacular, which means we have a 2-2 tie. We break our ties here. We have a fifth meeple, Dave, who plays with us at our table but doesn't sit around the table when we're recording here. But we go to him for the tiebreakers. He sends his picks to Pete. Pete, value for your time.
So Dave's pick for value for the time, he says, I selected Harmony for the puzzle aspect and the sense of accomplishment.
And Dave's done. Keeping it short but sweet, but he gives Harmonies its first victory in value for your time. We will go to replayability. Daniela.
All right, replayability. I think for the reasons that we had stated earlier when we were reviewing it, Spectacular, hands down, wins replayability for all the reasons we talked about with the different ways to add in scoring, remove scoring, and kind of really make it your own house rules. Chris.
Yeah, there's a lot of cards in Harmonies, and you have the spirit animals, you have the two-sided boards, but the game still feels samey for me relatively quickly. I've played a lot of Harmonies on BGA, though, and so it's samey, but I'm playing it a lot. But I think that's because it's there. Spectacular has a lot going on. It's not on BGA, so I'm not playing it there. And while there are some samey elements there, it just feels less samey to me. So it's Spectacular for me. I'll go to Dave.
Yeah, I feel like on this one, Spectacular actually needs to get on BGA because I think it would help you with the scoring, especially with the different phases and all of that. If you could just see it and it calculates it for you, I think this game would play a lot smoother. So, I'm hoping they maybe would put it out there. Yeah, for replayability, though, I am going to go with Spectacular in this one. I know Harmonies, they do have the, like Chris was saying, the nature spirit cards can come in and kind of give you an ability, but I still don't think that's enough for what Spectacular can bring to the table with all their missions and other stuff that you go. And I just think there's more paths to victory on Spectacular than there is in Harmonies. So with that being said, Spectacular is my vote. I'm now going to kick it over to Pete.
I'm just going to straight up here agree with you, David. I think just having more options, the drafting is going to be different each time. I'm going to go with Spectacular.
So another sweep for replayability. Spectacular takes a big lead. We'll go to fun factor. I'll start. Harmonies is an activity for me. Spectacular is a game. There's more challenge in Spectacular, and so I get a bigger rush when I actually make something work there. That's more fun for me. It's Spectacular. I'm going to go to Daniela.
All right, both of these games are mediocre fun for me. I didn't enjoy them, but that's fine. Chris did. And I'm going to go with Chris on Spectacular. David.
Wow, I could hear all the people booing Chris for Harmonies because it's ranked number 69, and it's pretty high up there. I was really hoping that when we got this game back to the table, that I would actually like this game a lot more. I would see what people are saying about it. It would be way more fun than what I thought in my head because it happened to me for Terraforming Mars, but for whatever reason, it did not happen for me with Harmonies. I just still don't have fun playing that game, and so I'm going to go with Spectacular. I have more fun playing it. I like a little bit more of a challenge, and I think Spectacular provides that in a short time frame. Going over to Pete.
Yeah, well, neither of these are fun for me. So what I'm going to determine is the fun is the puzzle aspect of it, and Spectacular just way outdoes it from Harmony. So you can see what's coming. I don't care for the blind flips on the other things going on. Just fun factor. Final answer. Spectacular.
All right, so Spectacular wins the fun factor, and with a score of 4-1, Spectacular avoids extinction in today's Battle of the Funnest.
Well, folks, that brings us to the end of yet another episode of the Fifth Meeple Board Game Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our discussion, and if you'd like to get in touch, just email us at thefifthmeeple@gmail.com or reach out to us on social media. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, remember, extinction is forever. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Adios, amigos.
That sounded like flinger flicker.
Appropriate. Oh, I am up.
You're dumb. Crap, what did you say? I just had the word in my head. You said something.
Yeah, Pete doesn't know what he's doing here, so.
Harmonies is a 1-to-4 player. Good Lord. Harmonies is
Great
a 1-to-4. Thank you. Harmonies is a 1-to-4 player drafting, set collection, and pattern building. Good Lord. One with the dice.
Yeah, thanks. They were both dumb games. That's why I didn't have.
It's better to be bigger than small, but
True.
Still kind of tight. It's always over before
You
I
want
want
it to
be.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do I always go there?